All right. Hi, everyone. I am Connie Szabo. I'm Advocacy Director at Bicycle Garage Indy. And today's Bicycling Lunch and Learn is about favorite technologies on and off the bike. Um, I'm going to go through a bunch of different technologies that I've found or have thought about. But if you have any favorites that you want to um, add in, there will definitely be time for this to be more of an open-ended discussion. So let's see, a couple of things, so we've got Lunch and Learns next month and September and October. So we have three different ones coming up. Off the top of my head, let me see if I can look at it real quick to see what the next topics are. Uh, so August is indoor cycling. So indoor riding clubs, injury prevention, keeping fitness in the off season, or just when you can't get outside and ride when it's 99 degrees out. Um, September 11th will be bicyclist and driver safety presented by Tess Wood. And October 9th, by that time it will be cold and dark. And so we will be talking about riding in the cold and dark. Uh, so that's what's coming up. And then next week, we will be having our active transportation meetup in Speedway. And so we're going to meet in Speedway at 8 o'clock and have uh, a gathering of people who bike, walk, take transit, and probably explore the B&O Trail. So that will be happening next week on Thursday at 10. I'm sorry, Thursday at 8, 8 a.m., 8 to 9. And those active transportation meetups, the last one is in August, and it will be at the Nickel Plate at 62nd, and we're going to explore the Nickel Plate at 62nd in Allisonville. There is a place we're going to meet for breakfast. So, check your emails, check the calendar, check the Lunch and Learn page, and all that information will be there. So, with that, I think those are all the announcements I've got. There are a bunch of different activities going on, all sorts of events. Andrea and I were just talking about the Mass Ave Crit that's going to be happening Friday, Saturday, Sunday downtown. Uh, Bike racing, bike rides, all sorts of stuff all weekend long. And let's see. Also, we've got, there's all sorts of bike rides and things like that. So I'm going to go ahead and start my presentation. Favorite technologies on and off the bike. Most of them are technologies with respect to bike riding, and so they're on the bike, but there are a couple that are computer based. Let's see. So there's different types of technologies. There's electronic, analog, safety, information, and performance, different purposes that you might use different technologies for. And so there's the technologies for tracking rides, your miles, odometer, all of that stuff. There's the good old bike computers. There's the GPS computers that give a little bit more information and track a lot more than your normal bike computer. And then there's smartwatches, and then there's also apps that you can have on your phone, like Ride with GPS and Strava, that do basically make your phone a GPS computer. So those are all different types of things that you can use for tracking rides, and what you do with that information is kind of up to you. I actually have a paper log that I write every single ride in, and I've done that since 1987. So I have all of the rides that I have done over all of those years. And it's kind of neat to look at and see and when did we do that ride and what year did we go on that trip, things like that. So it's kind of like my diary of my rides. So what you do with the information that these bike computers and GPS computers give you is up to you. But sometimes it's kind of fun to track that. So there is a new Garmin is one of the big GPS computer things, and they have a brand new GPS computer specifically for mountain biking. And I've got, a link. So this will be posted on the Lunch and Learn page. So you can go to this link that gives a whole review of it. But it's got features specifically for mountain biking that will track it better than a normal GPS computer. And Garmin also has all sorts of, if you're really into technology, they have not just the bike computers, they have lights, they have radar, power meters, all sorts of stuff. So great resource for all sorts of technology. Um, then there's also electronic technology, and I would say computer apps also for finding bike routes. And the two that I'm most familiar with are Ride with GPS and Strava. And I did actually a whole video presentation on finding rideable bicycle routes, which is linked on here. And it was primarily used on how to use Ride with GPS, but I went into also how you would use Strava and also the Strava global heat map. So a couple of resources with Ride with GPS. You can find routes that are already in a library. Um, Bicycle Garage Indy has 40 plus rides that are in there. And if you join our club, our bike shop club for free, you can get navigation turn-by-turn instructions for all of those routes. You can also, Central Indiana Cycling, which is the new name for Bike Indianapolis and Central Indiana Bicycling Association merged organization. They also have a huge library of routes. So if you're a member there, I think you also get the navigation of all of those routes. But if you're a member, you also get access to all of those types of, all of their library of rides, and they have hundreds and hundreds of rides. So if you ride with GPS, you can explore, you can go to their map and you can click on it and say what rides are here, and it will show all the different rides that they have in their library. Strava also has very similar things. Both of Ride with GPS and Strava have challenges too. So Bicycle Garage Indy has a couple challenges going on. One of them is our Upland Challenge. So Upland to Upland, we're partnering with Upland Brewing Company up in, well, all of the locations, but all the routes start in Carmel. And they primarily use the Monon and go to the different locations. And then you go back to the one on 146th Street and you get a reward. So there's some real fun challenges you can do like that. There's mileage challenges, there's climbing challenges. We did a climbing challenge last fall. Didn't know how many thousands of feet people would climb, but it was in September and October when a lot of people go on rides like the Hilly 100 and some other hillier rides outside of central Indiana flat land, and got some really big numbers from people who participated. And then the last thing, so the Strava global heat map, they and they get all of the information from all the different people who use Strava, and you can see what roads people are using and where people are not riding. Which for a transportation planner, it's a gold mine of information for where is bicycling happening and where is it not happening. And they make Strava Global Heat Map, they make that available to cities for transportation planning as well, which is kind of interesting. It's one of the reasons why I personally use Strava and ride with GPS, because then my data will actually go towards something good on Strava to help make more bicycle friendly roads. Let's see. So then there's electronic devices for performance. So there's heart rate monitors, there are cadence sensors, so you can track your pedaling speed to make sure that you're staying consistent. There are power meters, and I have a link for power meters for dummies because I know nothing about power meters, but if you want to know more about analyzing training and pacing and tracking fitness, you can do it more accurately with power meters, and they can be installed on your bike, on pedals or the hub or your crank. That's the extent that I know of it, but Bicycle Garage Indy has quite a few people who would be able to give you more information. And power meters, from what I understand, is they track your watts that you put in your pedal strokes, and that's a lot of times more accurate than your speed and your average speed and things like that. Let's see. Next. So then there are electronic devices for safety. So my husband actually bought a rear view camera for his bike and also for our tandem. Because he was having trouble with the mirror, and he had a rear view mirror. And so he got this rear view camera. He's gone back to a mirror on a single bike, but he's still using the rear view camera on our tandem. And so you get real-time view. It's a little monitor. And similar to what you might see in a car. The one that we have does not record, but when I was looking at this, they also have a model that also can record stuff as well and I guess from the front and rear. Not sure how it does it from the front, whether it might be there's something on the monitor itself that has a camera that records it. I'm not sure, but anyway, it's another way to track things and easily see what's going on behind you. Then there's also the Garmin Varia, which tracks with radar how close vehicles are coming to you when they're coming up from behind, and it'll flash. There's an indicator that you have at the front that will indicate that there's somebody behind you, and it also will flash to the people who are approaching you. So it's there's a whole lot of different varieties. One has a camera with it as well. Some just also serve as a rear light. So there's, a bunch of different things. You can explore to your heart's content. I told you Garmin has a lot of different technologies. They're a great company. And then there's lights. Lights, a long time ago, lights were not very strong. Bike lights were not very strong. They didn't last very long. They were battery based, and the batteries would wear out after an hour maybe, and just didn't give a lot of security when, either to see by or to be seen by. But they are much brighter and last longer than ever, and they're rechargeable with USB cords. There are now daylight running lights, which are recommended to use lights all the time so that, and the daylight ones are stronger because they have to overcompensate for the daylight that's out there. When you're at night, it doesn't have to be quite as strong to be seen. And they can be seen for quite a ways. I don't want to quote a distance, but I'm thinking it's a half mile, but I'm not positive on that. But anyway, they're brighter, they last longer. They're an easy thing to add to your bike. This is a new thing that's really gotten very popular, is a electronic pump. So instead of the floor pump that you have, or having CO2 cartridges, you can carry this very small thing. It's battery powered and chargeable, and you can set what PSI you need, and you can use it to pump up your tires. And it fits both types of valves. It's, there's all sorts of, Topeka is the one that Bicycle Garage Indy has had, but there are many different companies that have these digital pumps. And I'm actually considering getting one to carry on my bike, because my bike currently, I only have 2 places for water bottles, and one of them right now is um, being used for my pump. So I really want to have the ability to have 2 water bottles and then have this thing so that I could just stick that in my bag instead of my pump. But anyway, electronic pumps, new thing. I was on a bike ride. My husband and I were leading a bike ride, or actually we were attending a bike ride. It was one we weren't leading, and someone had one of these and they used it uh, to to fill up their tires quickly. So a couple analog technologies. Of course, there's rear view mirrors. You can put them on your glasses. You can put them on the ends of your handlebars. You can put them on the hoods of your handlebars. You can put them on your helmet. I have one on my helmet, and I look at it all the time when I'm riding. It's especially helpful when you're riding and it's really windy, because you can't necessarily hear motorists coming from behind when it's really windy. And so I look in my mirror more often, even on windy days. And so when I'm hiking in the woods sometimes and I hear a sound behind, I actually look in the place where my mirror is, because I'm so used to looking to find out what's going on behind me in that spot. And there's no mirror there when I'm hiking, um, but anyway, they're very helpful. And the other thing that I really like is, and it's not a very good picture of this, is an inclinometer or inclinometer. I'm not sure exactly how to say it. I always say inclinometer. But those can be used to see how steep percent grade the hill is that you're climbing. So the story is, there were these 2 bicyclists I think in Switzerland, or visiting Switzerland, and they were going up the Alps, and they wanted to know what percent grade they were climbing. So they invented this, and it's really simple. It's a bubble level that you stick on your bike, and it's calibrated for the percent grade. And we have that on our tandem because a lot of times we're going in hilly terrain, and you want to know, you know, how steep it is. And so I know how steep some of the hills are, and because of this inclinometer. There was one time we were in northern Michigan, and we were riding towards Lake Superior, and we literally stopped the bike several times because we thought we had a flat or something was wrong, because it was so hard it was harder than we thought, and it looked like a flat road. And this was before we had the inclinometer. And when we turned around and we're coming back, because it was out and back, on that same stretch, we ended up going, I think it was 30 miles an hour, just 20 miles an hour, with not any, it was easy to pedal, or, we were just, and so it was a very deceptive, long uphill that we were climbing. And then when we went the other way, we were pleasantly surprised that it was a very nice, long downhill. Um, but it's very helpful to know, how steep, or if you're going uphill, or it's also kind of nice to know what the grade is when you're going downhill, because sometimes you have to scrub your speed on that. Let's see what else. So other potential favorite items are, e-bikes are filled with all sorts of technology. I could have probably done a whole presentation on e-bikes, so I'm not going to go into e-bikes. There's also, some of the newer technology that's on bikes is, electronic shifting, that it automatically shifts for you. You just push a button and it'll shift. The disc brakes are much more powerful than the older style brakes. There's all sorts of different accessories. Helmets have new technology now. There's MIPS, there's wave cell. There was a new one that laser helmets have come up with. I don't remember the name of it now, but so they're always coming up with new technology with making helmets safer. And then, clothing has all sorts of technology, making it more wicking, or more environmentally friendly, or all sorts of things like that. So if anybody, if you want to unmute yourself, and I'm gonna go ahead and stop sharing my screen, or stop sharing, and then just open it up to anybody who might want to say what their favorite things are, if they have any questions about other things that they've heard about. So I'm gonna stop sharing for right now. And so does anybody have any favorite technologies or favorite things that they like to have when they're riding? Okay. Um, so Andrea, do you have any things that you like to have
Well,
on your bike?
I I'm kind of low key. I've thought about some more things to protect myself, like cameras and things in case an accident did happen. But I just use Strava. I love the idea that you have like a bicycle diary, and I think that'd be fun to explore like a more analog way of recording, you know, little rides and stuff. So I love that you do that, that you have had done that since the 80s. So yeah.
Yeah. Oh, it's a long time. So I've wanted to actually make it digital, at least, so in case this paper diary gets destroyed in some way, that I still have
Yeah,
some copy,
it
but
lives.
there's too many pages.
Yeah.
So I haven't done that. Um, yeah, so I was trying to think. Somebody
Depster.
has an app called Jepster, has a
Cool.
GPS map that tracks where
Never
you've
heard of it.
been. I have not heard of that before.
I'm looking it up.
One of the things I have seen, I think it's either
Hmm.
on Strava or Ride with GPS, is they show they give you a percentage of route, new roads that you've ridden on each month or something like,
Cool.
so, if you're into exploring new things or new places, that gives you some ideas. And then we got another one. Well, I thought I had another one. Okay. Um, so Keith, how does Jepster work? Does it just
Yeah. I don't know, just you just hit the app and it goes. You have to. The only issue is you got to remember to tell it to start and stop and to record because you'll launch it and sometimes forget to start it to record.
yeah.
And that's the only issue, but it's got it's almost like a dashboard, so I can pick whatever I want. And I've got, it's got the local time and sunset, which is really nice in the fall or spring. So you could say, oh, wait, I've been riding for 45 minutes. Sunset's in 20. Uh, better
Yeah.
hurry up. And just so it's got a few uh, things like that, which are really
Did I park next to you? I think so. Right on the
If
it's got the templates.
Yeah, so yeah, that would be helpful, especially in the fall when it starts getting dark much earlier.
yeah,
Um,
you can really pick it's got like 30 fields you can choose from. So if you want to know your average speed, your current speed, um, it's I find it very useful. It's supposed to track heart rate, but I can't get my Garmin watch to connect to it. Um, but it does detect the cadence. If you've got like a Garmin cadence,
okay.
it'll pick that up too. So it talks with some sensors. It's a little funky the way it connects though to sensors.
Yeah, sometimes getting things to connect to what you wanted to connect to can be a challenge. Um, yeah, it's interesting. I record both my rides both on Strava and on Ride with GPS, and I, mainly to compare them. I was having some issues actually with Ride with GPS, um, not tracking my ride accurately, like going through lakes and going through other things. And I contacted them and they said, well, they had a recent upgrade, so I needed to upgrade the app, and that that seemed to have fixed it. But it's interesting, the amount of elevation that I climb on Ride with GPS is significantly more, like 25 to 30% more than what it shows on Strava.
Hmm.
And, like it's the exact same route, exact same data, and Strava will say it's 700 feet of climbing, and um, Ride with GPS will say it's 1,000 feet of climbing. It's weird. I don't know why. Um, and then sometimes it's close, but my daily ride, it's usually 20 to 30% off.
Hmm. Yeah, I haven't
Yeah.
compared. Strava just kind of runs in the background on mine. I don't really actively use it, um, so I haven't really compared the two.
Yeah, I was mainly comparing them just to, when I started noticing that discrepancy, and also trying to make sure that my rides are tracked in some way, for the challenges that I was doing. Uh, I actually had, I think it was Ride with GPS, but I'm not positive. So at the Hilly 100, during this climbing challenge we were doing last fall, it was on the second day of the Hilly 100, and my Strava, I think it was Strava or Ride with GPS, whatever, they stopped recording after a half mile of the ride, and I didn't realize it until like 2/3 of the way through the ride when I had all these hills. So, so I missed about 2,000 feet of climbing. I was not very happy. Um, but let's see. Paul says loves his eyeglass mounted mirror. Yeah, I guess we're not the only ones. We're kindred spirits that we look up and laugh when we hear something. Um, yeah, I look at it all the time. Mine is on my helmet. So it's not, I suppose if I had one that was on sunglasses and I was hiking in the woods, then I would have a mirror to look at behind me, um, but mine is attached to my helmet. Let's see. I was trying to think if there's the other things. There is one thing I was thinking about earlier that's not in the presentation. I have a telescopic, what's it called? Tire lever. So, I rarely get flat tires, knock on wood. But when I do, this thing one end attaches to the hub of the wheel, and then the rest of it you can hook under the tire and then just swoop it around to get the tire so you can change it. And I found that that's a lot easier than using 3 tire levers to try and get your tire off the rim. And I've had that forever. So I use it very, very infrequently. I rarely get flats. But as soon as you say that, then you get a flat. So hopefully I won't get one in the next week or so. And so why one of the things why I don't get flats is because I check my tires and have good quality tires, but also if you inflate them on a regular basis, that helps prevent flats as well. I also, when I ride over anything like glass, I stop and I brush off my tire because that stuff can stick to your tire and then get embedded in your tire and then eventually work its way through and give you a flat. So you want to prevent as many flats as possible. Any other special things that people use on their bikes or off their bikes?
Just a question. What about, have you guys, I don't know what people use for like horns or bells. I just got a bell and I find that people actually listen to that more often on trails. But I didn't know about something just for particularly on roads.
Yeah. I think legally you're not supposed to be able to have a horn on a bike. Or no, maybe it's a whistle. Can't have a whistle on a bike. Not sure about horns. But yeah, I usually yell because that's quicker than trying to reach for anything like a bell. If I need to get somebody's attention. Um, there are we have some bells that are they're kind of like a circle around, they make a circle and then you just hit it a little bit and it rings for a long time and it's a nice, pretty loud ring. Cannot remember the name of it, but those are we've got those at Bicycle Garage Indy, and we have all sorts of bells. I mean, bells are fun things too, because you can kind of decorate your bike with, there's all sorts of different patterns on the bells, depending on what you want. Yeah, some people, like I ride on Fall Creek Trail a lot, and I usually say, as I'm approaching people, bike back, passing on your left, things like that. I have heard other people say that people hear the bells more than a human voice, but even then, sometimes people go the wrong way. So I still want to communicate which direction I'm passing them on. But there are, bells are definitely. It used to be that it was required, I'd have to check the Indiana code. I think that got dropped, but I'm not positive on that. Required as in having a bell. Yeah, so if no one else has any other things, comments about locks. Yeah, so there are locks that deter people and locks that prevent people from stealing bikes. So if it's most of the time, if you're going to be out of sight of your bike for any length of time, then you want to get a really good quality Kryptonite brand U-lock. And it's also important on how you lock your bike and what you lock it to. So you want to have the bike lock go through the frame and usually at least the rear wheel. And there are some locks that also have a cable attached to them. Then you can go through the front wheel as well. But you have to make sure whatever you're locking it to, somebody can't just lift the bike off and go. They're also locking axles. If you have quick release axles on the wheels of your bike, there are locking quick release so that somebody can't just take off with your wheel. So those are, there's also a seat lock, cable lock that you can lock your seat so somebody can't just take your seat post or take your seat out of the seat post. I'm not necessarily a good person to ask about locks because I don't have a lock. Because I don't ever take my bike somewhere where I can't see it. That's just something that one of these days I'll probably get a U-lock, but I don't have one right now. Flat prevention technology. Yeah, so there's all sorts of different things. My colleagues at BGI are very, very, how do I want to say it? They really like sealant and tubeless tires and say that there's a way to go. I am still in the old camp of having good quality tires and having, so I get gator skin tires, which are very flat resistant, and they now have a hard shell gator skin, which even more flat resistant. So it's got a lot of Kevlar beads in it. And so I still do tubes. And like I said, I rarely get flats. So, a lot of it is old school to flat prevention, which is, making sure your tires have proper inflation and that you brush off things and things like that. So, if you're going to go on, anybody who goes on long distance tours or long bike rides, then you might want to look into tube liners and, puncture, really good puncture resistant tires because you're going to go through a lot of stuff. But flat sealants. So this ride that we were on two people got flats, like within a half mile of each other. We weren't really sure why they got flats, and both of them had sealant in their tires, which one, it was a very small uh flat, a small break, and the sealant should have sealed it, but the sealant had dried out. And so just because you have sealant in your tires, you have to, I guess, refresh it on a regular basis. I didn't realize that. Um, and so the other person who got a flat, it was a big, huge gush of sealant that came out of his bike. And so, or bike tire, made a huge mess. And he ended up putting a tube in to get to, finish the rest of the ride. So all the rest of us were going, okay, two people got flats within a half mile of each other, and they have sealant, and uh so we all checked our tires too to see if there was anything on them. We didn't see anything, but so flat sealants, there are also kits that you can get that if you do get a bigger hole in your tire that the sealant can't fix, there's plugs that you can put in, um, and still pump up your tire and still go, get going pretty quick. But when I teach about, flat tire fixing and things like that, people say, well, how often should you change or should you air up your tires? And my answer is you should air up your tires before every ride that you don't want to get a flat on. And for most people, that's every ride. Do I do that? No. But I do at least check them. I do the ABC quick check. So do as I say, not as I do. Any other questions? People can really get into all sorts of technology. I love my lights. I used to not like riding at night or in dusk conditions because I don't even like driving in at night. I don't have good night vision. But I got some light and motion lights several years ago, and I was leading a ride, and when I was done with the ride, I was riding home at night, like pitch black, and I could see everything. Like it lit up the entire road, not just my lane, but the entire road, and I could see um, far enough down the road that I didn't have to slow down. A lot of times, if you have too much of a focused beam on the light, you can't really see far enough, and you can ride faster than what you can actually see. So you want to have a light that's got a pretty wide beam and really strong. And the lights that I got out of Light and Motion, they're USB charge, and they charge really quick and they last a while. So anyway, we're getting up on time, so I'm going to go ahead and end this. Thank you very much, everyone, for attending, and hopefully we'll see you next week at the Active Transportation Meetup or next month at the next Lunch and Learn. Have a great rest of your day.